The morning of my college graduation, my mother handed me an envelope. I had been awake since 5. I'd pressed my gown myself, twice, because the first time I left a crease in the wrong place, and I just knew, that if anything was off, someone would say something. That was how our house worked. You gave them nothing to use against you, and they found something anyway. She slid the envelope across the kitchen table without looking up from her coffee. No card, no bow, just a white business envelope with my name written on it in her handwriting. Nora, it said. Not congratulations, Nora. Not, we're proud of you. Just my name. Like she was labeling a file she was ready to put away. I opened it. Inside was a single folded piece of paper. A printed receipt. From the restaurant where we'd be having lunch that afternoon, the celebration lunch that I had not been consulted about, that my parents had announced 3 days earlier like they were doing me a favor. At the bottom of the receipt, in red ink, my mother had written 4 words. Your share. Don't forget, $62. She had itemized it. My entree. My portion of the appetizers. My drink. Tax and tip. Split 4 ways, because my brother and his wife would be there too, and apparently a graduation lunch was a group expense. I stood there in my pressed gown with the receipt in my hand, and my father walked in from the garage, saw my face, and said, "Don't make it weird, Nora. Money doesn't grow on trees just because you finally finish something." My brother came downstairs a few minutes later and saw me still standing at the table. He looked at the receipt. He looked at me. And then he laughed, that short, dismissive sound he'd been making since we were children. The one that meant you're being dramatic again, and he grabbed a banana from the counter and walked back out. I folded the receipt. I put it in my pocket. I wore my gown to lunch, paid my $62, smiled in the photographs, and said thank you. When my aunt said I looked lovely. And then I went back to my childhood bedroom, the one I'd been sleeping in for 3 weeks while I waited for my lease to start. And I sat on the edge of the bed, and I made myself a promise. I was done. Not angry done. Not dramatic done. Just done. The way you're done with a book you've already read, where you know all the words by heart, and there's nothing new left on any page. My lease started June 1st. I moved in on May 31st because my landlord, a quiet retired teacher named Gerald, who lived in the unit above me, said he didn't mind a day early. I drove 3 loads over in my hatchback, made up my bed with the sheets I'd bought at a discount store 2 towns over, and sat on my kitchen floor, eating a sandwich at 11 o'clock at night, because I didn't have a table yet. It was the best meal I'd eaten in months. My apartment was a 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor of a duplex, on a tree-lined street in a mid-sized city 40 minutes from where I grew up. Gerald owned the whole building. He'd bought it in the 80s, raised his kids there, and now rented the lower unit to people he liked the look of. He told me that on the day I came to see it. "I rent to people I like the look of," he said, not unkindly. "You look like you need a quiet place." I didn't ask him what he meant. I just signed the lease. My job started the 2nd week of June. I was a junior financial analyst at a mid-sized logistics company, which sounds boring because it mostly was, but the pay was better than I'd expected, and my manager, a woman named Diane, who wore the same style of blazer in 7 different colors, liked precision and rewarded it. Within 4 months, I had stopped being junior in anything but title. I want to be honest about something, because this is the part of the story that people sometimes misunderstand. I didn't cut my family off. I didn't block them, or change my number, or send anyone a letter explaining my boundaries in bullet points. I just stopped offering. I stopped calling first. I stopped showing up to things that weren't mandatory. I stopped mentioning my work, my apartment, my savings, my plans. When my mother called, I answered, and I said fine, and I said yes, and I said I'll think about it, and then I did whatever I was going to do anyway. When my brother texted to ask if I could help him move a couch, I said I was busy. When my father forwarded me job listings for positions 2 levels below what I already had, I said thanks. The less they knew, the lighter I felt. Diane gave me a raise in October. I put most of it directly into a savings account I had opened at a bank my family had never heard of, with an app that showed me a progress bar toward a down payment. I watched that bar grow the way other people watch sports. Every 2 weeks, a little more green. Every month, a little closer. Gerald and I developed the kind of neighborly friendship that only works when both people are quiet and consistent. He fixed a drip in my bathroom faucet without being asked. I brought him soup when he had a cold in November and left it outside his door with a note. On Sunday mornings, we sometimes passed each other in the driveway and talked about nothing for 10 minutes: the weather, a tree that needed trimming, what he'd seen on the evening news. He never asked about my family. I never offered, but there was one person who did know everything. Her name was Simone. We'd met at work. She was in operations, 2 floors up, and we'd ended up at the same table at a company lunch in August and talked through the entire meal, and then stood in the parking garage for another 40 minutes because neither of us wanted to stop. She was 31, originally from Atlanta, funny in a way that snuck up on you, and she had grown up with a mother who had a favorite child too. She didn't need me to explain certain things. She just already knew. Simone was the first person I showed the receipt to. I'd kept it. I don't know exactly why. It was still folded in the same way, slightly soft at the creases now, tucked into the back of the small notebook I kept in my bag. One evening in late September, we were sitting on my kitchen floor. I had a table by then, but the floor was a habit we'd established early, and neither of us saw a reason to change it. And I was telling her about a phone call with my mother, and I stopped mid-sentence and just went and got the notebook and unfolded the receipt and handed it to her. She read it. She looked up at me. "She charged you for your own graduation lunch," she said. $62, I said. "With tip." Simone held the receipt for a long moment. Then she set it down very carefully on the floor between us, like it was evidence. "Nora," she said, "you are going to be fine, and they are going to be sorry. I don't know when, and I don't know how. But I know it, like I know my own name." I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed about any of it. "Keep that receipt," she said, "for when that day comes." The down payment bar turned completely green in February, 14 months after I'd moved into the duplex. It was a Thursday evening, and I was at my kitchen table reviewing a spreadsheet when my phone buzzed with a notification from the bank app. I stared at the screen for probably a full minute. Then I texted Simone 2 words: "It's ready." Her response was immediate: "I'm bringing champagne." I closed on a small 2-bedroom house in March. It was 8 blocks from my apartment, on a street with a working streetlight and a neighbor who had planted roses along her fence. The house needed a new coat of paint on the trim, and the kitchen was outdated by about 15 years. But the bones were solid. Gerald had taught me to look at bones, and it was mine. Every inch of it. I did not tell my family. I know how that sounds. I want to explain it, not defend it. I hadn't told them about the down payment goal. I hadn't told them about my raise. I hadn't told them about Simone, or Gerald, or Diane, or any of the specific details of the life I was building. It wasn't a secret exactly. It was more that I had stopped issuing invitations into my life, and they had never thought to ask. My mother called roughly once a month. My father sometimes. My brother almost never. None of them had ever visited my apartment. None of them had asked for the address, and I had not given it. So when I moved into the house in late March, I moved the same way I'd moved into the apartment, in loads, quietly, without ceremony. Gerald helped me carry the heavier things. Simone brought food. The neighbor with the roses came over on the second day to introduce herself, and her name was Paulette, and she was 64 and direct and wonderful, and she told me the previous owners had left behind a very good lemon tree in the backyard that I was welcome to use. I made lemon cake that weekend. I brought half of it to Simone and half of it next door. I did not make any calls. Now, before I tell you what happened 4 months later, I need to ask you something. What time is it where you are right now? And are you somewhere comfortable? Because I want you to be comfortable for this next part. Because this is where everything changed. It was a Tuesday, in late July. Hot. The kind of hot where the air feels like it has weight, and I'd gotten home from work and changed into shorts and was sitting on my back porch watching the light go flat when my phone rang. My mother's name on the screen, I answered. Nora. Her voice was different, tighter. like something inside it was stretched thin, and she was trying not to let it show. "We need to talk to you." "Okay," I said. "Not on the phone." A pause. "We need to come see you." This was new. In 2 years, no one in my family had come to see me. I had always gone to them, or we had met at neutral locations, the restaurant at Christmas, the family reunion in June that I'd attended for 2 hours and left early from. "All right," I said carefully. "When were you thinking?" "Tonight." Another pause. "We're already on our way." I sat up straighter. "Your what?" "Your brother gave us your address," she said, and her voice shifted into something that was almost apologetic. Almost, but not quite. "From the county records." He looked it up. "After you bought the house." A beat. "We didn't know you bought a house, Nora." I want to be transparent about this moment. I had known this was theoretically possible. Property records are public. It had simply not occurred to me that my brother would go looking. He had never, in his life, shown any interest in what I was doing. Apparently, the idea that I had done something they didn't know about had motivated him in ways that my actual existence never had. "How long until you get here?" I asked. "Maybe 30 minutes, she said. "Your father is driving." I thanked her, which still makes me shake my head, and I hung up. And I sat on my back porch for exactly 2 minutes, and then I called Simone. "They're coming here," I said when she picked up. A pause. "To the house." In 30 minutes, I heard her exhale. "Do you want me to come over?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I think I need to do this one alone. But stay by your phone." "I'm right here," she said. "You know what you're doing. You've always known." I went inside. I washed my face. I put on shoes. I did not unlock the front door. They arrived in 34 minutes. I watched them pull up from the window in my living room, my father's car. The same dark sedan he'd driven for years, parking slightly crooked against the curb the way he always did. My mother got out first. Then my father. Then my brother and his wife. All 4 of them. I watched them walk up my front path. My mother had dressed up slightly, which was something I noticed and filed away. My brother was looking at the house the way he looked at things he was assessing for value. His wife, Kristen, was on her phone. My father knocked. I stood in my hallway and did not move. He knocked again. "Nora, we can see the lights on." I waited. "Nora." My mother's voice now, softer than it had been on the phone, the voice she used when she wanted something, and had decided soft would work better than hard. "We just want to talk. Please open the door." I walked to the door. I put my hand on the lock, and I stood there, and I thought about the receipt. I thought about the red ink, the itemized lines, the $62. I thought about my father's voice, saying, "Don't make it weird." I thought about my brother's laugh. I thought about every phone call I'd answered, and every visit I'd made, and every time I'd sat in that house where I grew up, and felt myself getting smaller without anyone noticing, or caring, or asking me to stay the same size. And then I thought about Simone on my kitchen floor, holding the receipt like it was evidence, saying they are going to be sorry. I unlocked the door. I opened it. My mother's face did something complicated when she saw me. Relief first, then something else, a quick up and down glance that took in my shorts, my hair, the slice of house visible behind me, and then she smiled, the smile she deployed for situations requiring management. "Sweetheart," she said. "Hi," I said. I did not move away from the doorway. She waited for me to step back and let them in. I didn't. My father cleared his throat. "Can we come in?" "I'd like to know what this is about first," I said. A beat. My mother and father exchanged a look, the fast, sideways, kind that parents think their children don't notice. And children always do. "We're in a difficult situation," my mother said. "Your father and I." I waited. There have been some financial things. With the business. My father ran a small landscaping company that had always been, in his words, doing fine. Apparently, fine had a shorter shelf life than he'd let on. "We've had to make some decisions. About the house. Our house," my mother said. "We may be losing it, Nora." I kept my face very still. They've sent letters. We're 3 months behind. And your brother," she glanced at him, and he was looking at the ground. He's in a situation too. With Kristen. They can't take us in. We can't take them in, Kristen said, not looking up from her phone. Her husband shot her a look. She did not amend the statement. We thought my mother started, and then stopped. And I watched her choose her next words with a deliberateness I had rarely seen from her. We thought, since you have the space. The second bedroom. Maybe for a little while. While we get back on our feet. The evening light was going gold behind them. Paulette's roses were visible over the fence line. Somewhere down the street, a sprinkler was running. I thought about the second bedroom. I had painted it myself, a soft gray-green, over a weekend in April. I had put in a bookshelf and a small desk. I had plans for it. Real plans. Specific ones, none of which included my parents. How long have you known about the house? I asked. My mother blinked. What? The house. How long have you known it was being foreclosed on? She looked at my father. A few months, he said, the way men say things when the answer is longer than they want to give. And you called me tonight because we need help, Nora. His voice was harder now. The soft approach had lasted about 90 seconds. Because you're our daughter, and we need help, and you thought I had a second bedroom, I said. Silence. You didn't know I had a house until your son looked it up in public records, I said. You didn't know I had a down payment, or a savings account, or a promotion, because I never told you, and no one ever asked. You called me on my graduation morning and handed me a receipt for my own celebration lunch. I reached into my pocket. I had put it there before they arrived. I held it out, still folded, and my mother's eyes went to it the way eyes go, to something they recognize but wish they didn't. $62, I said. With tip. My brother made a sound. I looked at him. He looked away. I'm not going to let you move in, I said. I kept my voice level, not cold level. There is a difference, and it matters. I'm not able to do that. Not right now, and I want to be honest with you about why, which is more than I was given on a lot of occasions. My mother's eyes were wet. That was real, I want to say that. She wasn't performing. Something in her face had cracked open in a way I hadn't seen before. But I had learned, slowly and at some cost, that a person can be genuinely sorry and still not be safe to let back in all at once. That's not cruelty. That's just accuracy. There's a number I can give you, I said. A housing counselor, a real one. Non-profit. They don't charge anything. They deal specifically with foreclosure situations. They've helped people in worse positions than yours get back on a payment plan or negotiate with the lender. I had looked this up that afternoon, in the 34 minutes between the phone call and their arrival. I had written the number down on a piece of paper. I held it out alongside the receipt. Take this. Call them tomorrow morning, not next week tomorrow. My mother took both pieces of paper. Her hand was shaking slightly. Nora, my father said. His voice had lost its hardness. That surprised me. We made mistakes. I know, I said. We didn't. He stopped. Started again. We didn't know you were doing all this, building all this. He gestured vaguely at the house, the street, the general fact of my life. We should have known. Yes, I said. You should have. That was all I gave him. Not because I wanted to wound him, though I will admit, standing there, that some part of me had been waiting 2 years to say it, but because it was true, and true things sometimes need to be said plainly, and then left alone. I looked at my brother. He was still looking at the ground. I'm not angry at you, I said to him. He looked up, surprised. I mean that. But I want you to know I found out about your looking up the property records, and I need you to understand that my life is not available for you to look up when it becomes convenient. What's mine is mine, the same way what's yours is yours. We can disagree on a lot of things. That one I need you to understand. Kristen had put her phone away. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't entirely read, something that might have been, somewhere under all the other layers, respect. My brother nodded. One nod. Small, but real. I love you, I said to all of them. And I meant it, which is the part that is hardest to explain and also the most important part. I love you, and I am not equipped to rescue you from this. and I'm not going to pretend I am. But I'm also not disappearing. I'm right here. I just need you to come here honestly. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, nodded. I gave them the number for a nonprofit housing counselor. I gave them the address of a decent extended stay motel 2 miles away that I knew was reasonably priced. Because I had looked that up too. I told them to call me after they spoke to the counselor. And then I said goodnight, and I closed the door, and I locked it, and I stood in my hallway and breathed. I called Simone. How did it go? She asked. I didn't let them in, I said. I gave them a housing counselor's number. I told my brother to stop looking me up. A long pause. Then, how do you feel? I thought about it. I looked around my hallway, the small framed print I'd hung crooked and then straightened. The little table Gerald had helped me carry in, the lemon-colored doormat Paulette had left on my porch as a welcome gift. Like myself, I said. Exactly like myself. Good, she said. That's the only way you should feel in your own house. My parents called the housing counselor. I know because my mother texted me the following Thursday to say they had an appointment. It was a short text, just the facts, no commentary. I texted back 2 words. Good. Call me after. She did. The counselor had found a path not easy, not immediate, but a path, a repayment arrangement, a timeline that was manageable if they were disciplined, which they had not historically been, but which they now had a reason to try. My brother called me 3 weeks later. Not about the house, just to talk, which was something we had not done, not really. Not without an agenda, in longer than I could remember. The conversation was halting and a little strange. The way conversations are when 2 people are learning a new language they both should have spoken years ago. But it was a start. I kept the receipt. It's in a frame now. Small one. Hanging inside my kitchen cabinet door, where I see it every morning when I take out a coffee cup. Not as a wound. Not as a trophy. As a reminder of what I came from, what I built anyway, and what it cost, and what it was worth. Simone came over for dinner the Saturday after everything settled, and we sat at my actual table this time, with actual chairs, and she raised her glass and said, "To the house that you built, while no one was paying attention." I raised mine back. "And to the people who noticed anyway," she smiled. "You know the best part?" "What?" "They came to your door," she said. "They drove to your street. They knocked on the door of a house they didn't even know you had." She tilted her head, the way she did when she was making a point. "Think about that. They spent years making you feel like nothing. And then the moment things got hard, they drove straight to the nothing." I laughed. It was the kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep and real and a little bit aching. She was right. They drove straight to the nothing, and the nothing turned out to be everything. I want to ask you something before you go, and I want you to actually think about it, not just scroll past it, but sit with it for a second. Is there something in your life right now that someone is calling nothing? Something you're building quietly, in the margins, while someone else is deciding what you're worth? Because I want you to know what I know now. The receipt doesn't define what you'll pay. It just shows you what they think you owe. You don't owe them that. You never did.